Good morning, Kansas City. Welcome to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio 95.7 FM. I'm Kevin Kietzman on a soggy Monday morning. Hope you did just fine through the storms before daylight today. Wow, was that an earth shaker that rolled through. So we're a little rattled here today from a lot of events over the weekend and the storms. We hope you are hanging in there and doing just fine. We got a big show today. In just a couple of moments, my thoughts on the next assassination attempt of Donald Trump, and where he is and what can we do about this, keeping it from happening. At 10:30, I will share with you some clips from an event I was at on Saturday night with the Clay County Republicans for their Lincoln Reagan Trump Days dinner, where I was the master of ceremonies, and we thought the only real eventful thing that was happening there was Chris Stigall and Nathan Willett were both on stage beginning their campaign against one another for the seat that's being vacated by Sam Graves, the congressional seat, which was rather interesting. Chris went first. Nathan went second and went well over his time limit. And I just think of it. I'm like, uh-oh, it's on. It's on with these two guys. It's on. I know Chris way better than Mr. Willett, certainly, but it's on. This is a real battle, these two guys. I don't think this is going to be the friendliest thing you ever saw. I'm not going to say anything more today. That's my one takeaway from the evening until Will Scharf, the special assistant to the President of the United States and staff secretary at the White House, had an alarm go off on his phone. He has two phones. He has Will Scharf's phone, and then he has the White House phone. And it made a sound like an alarm, a fire alarm. And you can hear it a little bit, and clip will play in about 30 minutes. We'll get into more of that story and what transpired. After about 7 or 8 more minutes after that, it was actually Chris Stigall that came up and notified us on stage that this had happened. We didn't know. We were up there doing a Q&A, and that's where it ended with Will. But I've got a great story to tell on how that transpired, and we'll play some sound and a clip of how it sounded for everybody that was in attendance on Saturday night. I think you'll find it to be interesting. Now, I'm interested. We were not in any danger, and we didn't think, there's going to be attacks everywhere and everyone in Trump's world. That was not the feeling. Nobody felt like they were scared there. But it did feel like we were part of, like that whole room was somehow part of the White House team with that phone going off and Will Scharf going to make a call. It was just a pretty surreal night. But we know what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner at the Washington Hilton. And depending on how you want to count assassination attempts, this is 3 or 4 or 5. A couple of creeps have tried to climb the walls at the White House and get in there to get Trump. So do those count? I don't know. We'll put different levels of importance on each one of these things. But there's, and we've asked ourselves this question over the last couple of years, how do we stop this? How do we, and most people's first reaction is, well, let's stop inciting the crazy people that Trump is the enemy, which mostly the media and Democrat politicians do. But certainly there's all kinds of dark places on the web and places in neighborhoods and No Kings rallies and street corners in your neighborhood maybe, where they're fomenting hate. This man was at No Kings rally. So when they say, it's a mostly peaceful thing, yeah, until one of these guys gets so wound up, he's going to drive to D.C. and try to kill the president at a hotel. Yeah, mostly peaceful is not good enough. I'm sorry, it's not good enough. And we can scream all day we want about January 6th. It was mostly peaceful, and that's not good enough. There were some people that did some bad things that day and shouldn't have done it. And this cuts to both sides. And yes, Trump at that point would have been guilty of fomenting a bunch of anger in some people that got to the Capitol and got in the building. Almost all of them did absolutely nothing. They were like tourists, but a handful of them did things they really shouldn't have done. Not to the level that we've seen with trying to assassinate the president. As Trump noted this weekend, if you're as he's studied assassination attempts of famous American history figures, mostly presidents, it's been, if you are consequential, they will come for you. So they weren't presidents, but Robert F. Kennedy Jr. fits in that category. Martin Luther King fits in that category. Charlie Kirk fits into that category. When you're consequential and you're building something and you have a movement and it's growing and the other side feels like they're being defeated by you, that's what they resort to. And that's what this crazy dude was doing. You know what? I didn't even write his name down. I don't care what his name is anymore. I don't care about any of their names. These people are crazy. We have one shot here at stopping this. It will not be the Democrat politicians until the Democrat media are in control. They're the ones who have pushed the politicians to become so outrageous with their speech and everything that they say. Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, Pelosi, all these people. The media are pushing these people. They're giving them airtime. They're putting oxygen on their fire. That's what the media do. Now, the one shot we have out of this one was the insane number of liberals in the media that were in that room. This ballroom had thousands of people in it. I'm going to assume half of them were liberals. Trump was there, so everybody in his world got to come. So they had a big say, and I think there was a much larger contingent of conservative media members there than normally at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But they were there. I saw Carrie Lake, the former politician in Arizona, made a post that she was giving Jake Tapper the business on the way out when they got into the kind of like the lobby area. She was screaming at him like, this is on you and all your people. You got to stop, stop, stop. And he was getting back in her face, apparently. Those people were scared. Let's just be honest. I don't care whether the guy was still 30, 40 yards away from the entrance to that ballroom. Those people in media sit in an ivory tower every night and do what it is that they do. And they make millions of dollars and they live in their bubble and they're not afraid of anything because they know the violent people are on the left and they're not coming after them. But this particular killer, I don't like to use the M word. I don't even know what a manifesto is. It gives too much credence to what these creeps are. So in his writings, in his papers or what email that he sent to his siblings, he said he didn't care about the liberals in the media in that room. He was going to shoot anybody he had to get to the president of the United States. And the reason he didn't care about these people, because if they were so-called liberals in the media, they shouldn't have been at the dinner. So they're expendable. I'll kill all them too. They know this. There's not a liberal in that room that doesn't understand this killer was going to kill them to get to the president. And if that doesn't wake them up just a little bit, instead of just seeing video of Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, or a guy in the bushes outside a golf course in Florida, and all this, now they heard the shots, they were there, they got locked down. And by the way, I don't know if you've seen this or not, it's so pathetic, but it is so typical of media. It doesn't matter whether it's local media or national media. They were stealing bottles of wine and champagne off the tables at the end of the night and taking it with them. Unbelievable. You had a shooting take place out in the hallway, and after you've been locked down for 45 minutes or whatever it was, you decide you're going to steal the booze from the room because there's nobody there to keep you from stealing it. There's like 3 or 4 different people. I don't know who they are. They could be conservative too. It's remarkable what happens with these situations. So you don't think the media is inspiring any of these things? This is, I think, very interesting today. Melania Trump just posted something. She has stayed out of this stuff forever. She clearly was terrified, and Oz the Mentalist was up there with her and her husband, the president, and the chairman of the ball were sitting there, and Oz the Mentalist was doing a little trick where he was going to name Caroline Levitt's baby. Caroline Levitt was sitting there, and he was going to say, I know the name of the baby. I'm going to prove it to you. And he was doing this trick, and they were all kind of had this gazed look in their eye. And then Melania was the first one to kind of freak out. So she heard it. And she knew at that point that Jimmy Kimmel had made a joke 48 hours later about her on his supposedly comedy show, referring to her as an expectant widow. Making a joke about the White House Correspondents' Dinner, he was acting like he was the MC. And he was saying, Melania Trump is here tonight. Melania, you look so beautiful tonight. You have the glow of an expectant widow. That was his joke on his TV show less than 48 hours before an assassin went in to try to kill them all. And by the way, they would have killed Melania too if he'd gotten a chance. If he'd have been right there with his guns, he was taking them all out. Every single one of them. First Lady Melania Trump never does this. She just posted this within the last hour on social media. Jimmy Kimmel's hateful and violent rhetoric is intended to divide our country. His monologue about my family isn't comedy. His words are corrosive and deepens the political sickness within America. People like Kimmel shouldn't have the opportunity to enter our homes each evening to spread hate. A coward, Kimmel hides behind ABC because he knows the network will keep running cover to protect him. Enough is enough. It's time for ABC to take a stand. How many times will ABC's leadership enable Kimmel's atrocious behavior at the expense of our community? Beautifully stated, Melania. The president, for his part, is presidential. The one common complaint people have is, why can't Trump be more presidential? Well, he was this weekend. He went on 60 Minutes because in his world, 60 Minutes was always the gold standard of American journalism. If you sit down with 60 Minutes, it's fair, it's honest, it's real, and here it is for the American people. So he decided to go there, but he even knew, even though CBS is getting better, he knew something would go wrong when he would be speaking with Norah O'Donnell. But this is as presidential as it gets. The difference between him at a podium and a rally talking about these issues and the fake news and how bad they are, and with Norah O'Donnell, where he's just looking at her like, Norah, stop. This is a real conversation. Something real happened last night. This is not politics as usual. This is a very presidential exchange, one of my favorites ever for Donald Trump.
So-called manifesto is a stunning thing to read, Mr. President. He appears to reference a motive in it. He writes this, quote, administration officials, they are targets. And he also wrote this, I am no longer willing to permit a pedophile, rapist, and traitor to coat my hands with his crimes. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I was waiting for you to read that because I knew you would, because you're horrible people, horrible people. Yeah, he did write that. I'm not a rapist. I didn't rape anybody.
But, do you think he was referring to you?
Excuse me. I'm not a pedophile. You read that crap from some sick person. I got associated with all stuff that has nothing to do with me. I was totally exonerated. Your friends on the other side of the plate are the ones that were involved with, let's say, Epstein or other things. But I said to myself, I'll do this interview and they'll probably, I read the manifesto, he's a sick person, but you should be ashamed of yourself reading that because I'm not any of those things.
Mr. President,
and I
these
was
are
never,
the gunman's words.
Excuse me. You shouldn't be reading that on 60 Minutes. You're a disgrace. But go ahead. Let's finish the interview.
The other thing that he wrote in
the
other thing.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I didn't do any of those things, and you know it, Norah. You're sitting right here in front of me. Can we be real? You know I'm not those things. Why do you people keep doing this? And your cover is you're reading from a crazy person's quote-unquote manifesto? That's no excuse to be bringing that up and asking. There's so many more important questions to ask the president after this event than that. It's really sad. My favorite post of the weekend came from a guy named Jason Meister on X. They arrested the president of the United States of America 4 times. They charged him 91 times. They indicted him 4 times. They spied on his campaign. They sabotaged his first term. They jailed his supporters, raided his private residence. They censored him. They gagged him. They tried to bankrupt him, and they attempted to remove him from state ballots. When all of that failed, they tried to assassinate him not once, but 4 times. And they have the gall to go on national television to talk about how we need to vote for them to save democracy. 913-408-7957. How do we stop this? Can you help? We got a public forum here. You got any great ideas? I think the best chance we have is a wake-up call with the media, and they stop inciting this. I'm not sure that will completely do it because some people are so hardened against Trump, there's no turning back. Is there anything we can do to stop leftist violence? 913-408-7957. This is Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio.
From Lawrence to Leavenworth, it's Kevin Kietzman, Uncanceled, on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
Coming up in just a few minutes, I was on stage Saturday night with Will Scharf, the Special Assistant to the President of the United States and Staff Secretary at the Oval Office at Harrah's North Kansas City Ballroom when this event happened and his phone went off, and it was wild. We're going to play some of that for you coming up in a few minutes, so stick around. Right now, it's your phone calls. Wes in Paul in Kansas City is up first. Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm doing great, Kevin. How you doing?
Fine, thank you.
I think the big thing is the indoctrination levels that are going on in schools. I went back to college after the first Gulf War, and I noticed when I was in school that they were teaching revisionist history, and so this slant towards hating the right was going on 20 years ago aggressively, and it's even worse now from talking to my friends and their kids. So I think the accountability is for donors at colleges, and I think that this culture of if we don't get our way, we have to find our way into it. That was talked about even when I was in school. So I don't know. I know free speech is a big thing, but with our country. But the problem is outright lies should be held accountable, and that's not happening.
Well said. And I talk about our government schools all the time and the things that they're teaching to our kids, and it's dangerous. Government schools are definitely part of the problem. Good call, buddy. Here's Wes in Gladstone. Hey, Wes, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, good, man. What needs to be done if you want this to stop is that Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Barack Obama, and Bill Clinton hold a press conference and say, you know what? Everything we've said about Trump, from him being or anyone in the Democrat Party has said about Trump being a fascist or a dictator or a king, we were wrong. He is not. He is our president. Let's stop the hate now.
Yeah, it would be great if you had the living presidents up there together and it was Obama giving the statement. But Barack Obama's not going to tell these people to stop.
No.
He's not.
Here's why I think. They want to make people so afraid only because you're afraid because Trump is the president. He's making you scared. No, they're making people scared by inciting all this violence. Yep. I'm sorry. Show me where that isn't their plan.
All right. Excellent call. I think I'm with you. Here's Chuck in Lenexa. Good morning, Chuck.
Good morning, Kevin. I've just got a couple of strategies that have worked for me. First of all, people ask me right out of the gate, did you vote for Trump? My answer is I always vote for the most conservative candidate available. They say, so you're MAGA. No, I'm conservative. Show me another country where liberalism works. I'm also from Canada, and I know the healthcare system. I know how that works, but that's a good way to deflect. It's not about Trump. It's about the idea of conservatism. But one of the things I'm starting to be interested in doing is calling out my former teaching colleagues. I was a college teacher for 30 years, and asking them, how's your manifesto coming? Asking them online, are you next? Are you going to be attacking Trump and our people, right, our conservatives? And calling them out and see how they react, because I don't think you can get a defamation, problem with that. And because these people are very vocal. These community college teachers are way over the top, and university professors. Let's start calling them out publicly on social media.
Yeah, great idea. Thank you for your call. Outstanding. Here is Jonathan in Kansas City. Hi, Jonathan. Go ahead, Jonathan. Or John. John, go ahead.
Oh, hey, is that me?
Sorry. Yep. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was telling Mark, I was like, it's surprising. You can remember when Barack Obama first got elected, they were saying he'd never make it through his whole term. The right wouldn't stand for a black president, and they were going to assassinate him. He'd be the most endangered president since Abraham Lincoln. I don't recall one assassination attempt against Barack Obama.
You're right. I can't recall one either. Excellent point there. No question about it. All right. This is now Jonathan in Kansas City. Hey, Jonathan, how are you?
Good. Obviously the event is sickening. What's almost, as equally sickening was the reaction to it. Literally within seconds of that event, there were people online saying, "Oh, it was staged." It's so scary. George Orwell warned about this in 1984. Where if we're not careful, we could end up with a society where truth doesn't matter. Everything is narrative. Nobody believes anything, and that allows tyrants to come into power and to be like, well, what does it matter if we tell you the truth or not? You don't even value it anyway. I mean, we are on the road to that, and it is scary when you see stuff like that.
Great call, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. When we come back, it was quite an evening. My wife and I were honored to be emceeing the event with the Clay County Republicans at Harrah's, and Will Scharf was the special guest from the White House. We had to shut the program down early when the assassination attempt was made. We all knew about it immediately. I'll play it for you next.
Vince Colonnese here, and I'm coming up at 11 after Kevin Kietzman on 95.7 FM KCMO Talk Radio.
It was my honor to be the MC at the Clay County Republicans Lincoln Reagan Trump Days dinner on Saturday night. Nice gathering of folks in the ballroom at Harrah's, North Kansas City. And Marcus Smith and his team, the committee chair there, do a great job. There were a whole bunch of people running for office and a whole bunch of elected officials there. It was really cool. I guess maybe the highlight before the featured speaker, who was Will Scharf from the White House, was Chris Stigall and Nathan Willett, who were vying for that Senate seat that Sam Graves is vacating. So that was a pretty interesting part of the night as well. And I know I mention this every now and then. I try not to really come on here and promote my podcast, but I'm going to play a couple of clips here from Will Scharf that are relatively short compared to what is on my podcast today. It's easy to listen to a podcast if you never have, and many of you haven't because you come up to me and say, well, I just don't listen to podcasts. Just think of it as a website. I know you all go to websites. My website is kkhasissues.com. If you go to kkhasissues.com, there's a play button. You just click it, and you can hear the podcast. You don't have to worry about doing it on your phone or through a Bluetooth or anything like that. Everybody's got a laptop or a computer or even on your phone. Just go to the browser, kkhasissues.com, and play it. There's a much longer clip of this, and in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to put together a podcast. It'll take a while. The program was like an hour and 6 minutes long total, and I'm going to turn that into a full podcast of Will Scharf because he doesn't do interviews. I asked him when it was over, hey, here's my card. I'd love to have you on the podcast or radio show sometime when things calm down, whatever. He goes, yeah, I'm not doing interviews. I don't do interviews. I said, okay, well, when you're out of the White House, whenever it's over, I'd love to have you on. He goes, I'd love to. That'd be great. Will Scharf's job at the White House is to be the adult in charge. He's behind the scenes mostly, very quiet. He told an unbelievable story before a Q&A session, which I was going to have with him on stage. He took the microphone himself and spoke for about 20 minutes. And he told the story of, I took this job because how do you not take a position that the president offers you thinking this is great? I'll keep some anonymity, low profile, all this stuff. And we went through and we had the big, right after he was inaugurated, the big signing of executive orders. And he goes, that was so great. Going forward, all the new ones we're going to do, we're just going to do them in the Oval Office. And Scharf's like, great, we'll have them all ready for you. And you can just go through. He says, no. I'm not doing any of that. You're going to introduce them all. And Scharf's like, what? He's like, no, just tell the reporters what they are and what it means, and then hand it to me, and then I'll comment on it and sign it. He's like, okay, well, Will Scharf's become famous. And everybody knows who he is now and what he looks like and all those things. So I'm not speaking out of turn because he offered this all up on Saturday night. Will Scharf is from St. Louis. He's a native Missourian. He ran for Attorney General. Andrew Bailey won. Scharf winds up in the White House. Is there like a stockpile of Attorney General candidates in the state of Missouri? How great. If you have that position in this state, your future is just golden. Heck, you can lose that race and your future is golden. And so Scharf lives in St. Louis. And he's committed to do this event, and he's home in St. Louis, and he's got a 3-hour window, basically, at this event where he's told them at the White House, okay, I'm off, I'm doing this thing, and they all know this. He has 2 phones. He has his phone, he has a White House phone. And so he's at this event, and I learned that he's driven over from St. Louis in a rental car. And when he's done, he's going to drive back to St. Louis. He has nobody with him. He doesn't have an assistant, like an executive aide, somebody to help him get out when he needs to leave and people are bothering him too much. He doesn't have security. He doesn't have anything. And it was unbelievable because what we were talking about, and we'll get into this in a moment, we're at this point, we're talking, he'd been very emotional about Charlie Kirk's assassination. They were very good friends in his speech. And so I'd followed up and we were sort of talking about that and a couple of other things. So the first clip I'm going to play for you here is Will Scharf is just speaking when his phone goes off, which is about 10 feet away, and you won't hear it initially. The microphones we're using on stage are designed to keep the crowd noise out. This is like a clean audio feed, like a radio feed. So you don't hear the background noise, but this thing went off. Everybody in the room could hear it. It sounded like a fire alarm. This is the first clip when his phone rings, and this would have been moments after the assassination attempt in D.C.
So I believe that in the next couple election cycles, door knocking, personal phone calls, those sort of personal voter contacts are going to become much, much more important because there's just going to be so much content out there. That's my work phone.
Oh, my goodness.
Let me just see.
I actually have a question about that.
It's good. I'll get back to him. It wasn't the president, I promise. Yeah, if it was, I would. But no, it's one of the guys from my team.
Okay, so we all actually thought it was the president. Everybody in the room thought, okay, we've seen him do this. One of his people's out giving a speech, JD or somebody's out doing whatever, and he calls into the group and says hi for 2 minutes. They hold it up at the microphone, and it would have been perfectly on script. They would have never told me this was going to happen, but Will would have been able to do this himself. He's got a handheld mic. And if the president wants to call, you just hold the microphone up to the phone, and everything was great. Literally, everybody thought the president was just calling in, like on his way to the dinner or something, to say hi to Will Scharf's group in the great state of Missouri that's voted record for me so many times. You know, you can imagine what it would have been, but it wasn't. It was one of his assistants. We would later learn that the person from his team that was in charge at the White House Correspondents' Dinner couldn't reach him because I don't know what they did with everybody that was at the dinner, but they locked him down. And I think they took some phones from some people or did something or jammed them. I'm not sure. Communications, I don't understand that, but this was a lower level person on Scharf's staff that was getting a hold of him. He felt comfortable enough to say, I'll just call him back. But what Will knew and what I later found out was there was a 3-hour window where don't call Will unless it's an emergency. He's doing this event. Don't ring this phone because it could be up on stage. But they called. So for the next 7 or 8 minutes, I'm talking to him, and I can see in Will's eye, he's thinking maybe I should have taken that. So I'm going to play a clip here where he's speaking, and you'll hear the interruption. Over to our right is Chris DeGaulle from KCMO Talk Radio back in the day, right? And he comes up, and I think he's going to take a picture of us. We're sitting up on a platform stage, and he's down low with his phone like he's going to take a picture of his friend Kevin and Will Scharf. And I just thought he was going to take a picture. And he's like skulking down really low so he doesn't make a scene. And he reaches up with his hand, and he hands me his phone. I don't have my phone. And I look at it, and it says, Trump evacuated from White House Correspondents' Dinner. I said, uh-oh. And you'll hear this. You'll hear all of this from Will Scharf. This is what took place as Will and I were talking. And what were we talking about? We were talking about safety and security. I'd asked him about Stephen Miller and death threats and how dangerous it is to be in Trump's orbit when this all happens. Listen to this.
Do you all feel safe? And should you have somebody with you?
I've gotten one death threat, which is from some guy like living in his mother's basement in Texas. Okay. I reported it to the FBI. He got indicted. So this is how crazy this guy was. So I got this death threat called into my phone, and he said he was going to cut my head off and kill my family. So I'm like, I should probably report this to somebody. So I called the guy at the FBI, and they visited him, right? Like they were able to, he blocked his number, but they like pulled his number. And they visited him, and they were like, hey man, like you can't phone in death threats to government officials. Like that's illegal. And then he called me 4 more times that afternoon. And like all the same stuff. And I'm just like, okay, like guys, like do what you got to do. So he got indicted. I think he pled guilty now to like making interstate threats or whatever the charge is. But there are people in our administration who get that every day. I mean, Stephen Miller, Tom Homan. It's crazy that that's where we are as a country. And you know, you talk about Charlie Kirk. You talk about all of that sort of thing. It's did something just happen?
Yes, it did. I'll give it to you. Thanks, Chris.
Oh, jeez. Okay.
He's got to go.
Yeah.
I think. Yes?
Yeah, let me make a call.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let's thank Will Scharf, and I'll let you know what's going on. Thank you very much.
Thanks for that.
Will Scharf. Yeah. The president was just evacuated from the White House Correspondents' Dinner. There were shots heard. Yeah, no, he's not. Yeah, that's clear. I didn't read the whole thing. Did you read it all, Chris? He's evacuated. He's out. He's fine. He's good. But they don't know what the shots were from the back of the room or some whatever. So, thank you, Will. Appreciate it. Okay. Man, it's legit. We were just sitting here having that discussion, and I was going to ask Will the question. They send us out on remotes. We used to do sports radio remotes all the time and never even thought of things like this. But now, the company that I work for, they say you're going out in public, should we hire an off-duty cop to be there because it's known that you're there? So like this event tonight was public record. Like anybody could have known Will Sharf was going to be here tonight. That's more than anything else. What I mean, the money we have and whatever, that doesn't even compute to me. And my next question was going to be, how often do you speak in public where it's known you're going to be there speaking? So, man, I just think they all need every bit of protection they could possibly get. So, yeah, and he's awesome to be here like this, man. That's a real Missourian. You can just tell, man. You can just tell. So I think we're going to wrap it up. Marcus, come on back up. I think you've got some final comments. I want to thank you very much for being here tonight. If you'd like to make one more bid on an auction item, I think they'd be happy if you did that. Welcome back, Marcus Smith. Thanks for having me tonight.
Okay, and so that's how it wrapped up with Will Sharf, who stepped out of the room, made some calls, and then came back in and took pictures with people. The event ended early, obviously. We had about 20 minutes to go in the Q&A. As a veteran master of ceremonies, I was well ahead of schedule, which everyone in attendance, if you finish a program earlier than it says it's going to finish, you get more pats on the back and thank yous from people like you've never heard. Now, this was different because I think they would have listened to Will all night long. And he'd given a significantly long speech, and we'd spent some time on stage, but I knew I still had plenty of time left. We were going to get into some fun questions from the audience. They'd written them on cards like, do you have a girlfriend? Or, like silly stuff. We were going to get into all of that. But I couldn't believe we were literally sitting there talking about security for him, security for people in Trump's world, and safety when it was learned that that's what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. There's a much longer clip. There's more of his speech at kkhasissues.com. And within the next couple of weeks, I don't know when it will be. It's going to take some editing and some work, and I'm not great at that, but I'll get it up. I'll let you know when that is, and you'll be able to go hear much more. I'm telling you, that guy's unbelievable. Princeton and Harvard law grad, and it was a perfect night for me, Mark. I got to make fun of my Kansas State University education all night because I was there with Will Sharf with Princeton and Harvard. It was great.
That's amazing.
I mean, he couldn't have been more down to earth. He's a Missourian, I think, is the way you would describe it, and he really doesn't seek attention or the public eye. He's found fame because of these executive orders. I joked as I introduced him, there's a big, long bio introduction, when you have somebody that esteemed as the special guest. And I had to have a little fun at the end. When I introduced him, I said, yeah, and he's the only man in the state of Missouri that gets more TV time than Patrick Mahomes. Welcome, Will Sharf. And everybody laughed and thought it was fun. And he enjoyed that as well. He stayed around for a little bit, took some pictures, and then he drove back to St. Louis and had an early morning flight Sunday morning to go back to the White House. Does any of this make sense to you, Mark? I mean, with the budgets and the money and the everything that we have, how is Will Sharf flying to St. Louis, renting a car, driving to Kansas City and back on the same night, getting up the next morning and flying to D.C.? I don't understand any of this.
You should at least have one person.
Something.
I would think. A driver.
Something. He must have. I don't know what his business was in St. Louis. He's from there, so I'm sure it was absolutely legitimate. He probably spent all day Saturday doing that. But what you talk about gracious with your time. He told stories about how difficult it is to work for President Trump, not because of his personality, but he said the only time you're ever safe is 2:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. He said that's the only time you're safe. And very early in his tenure at the White House, he had his phone on vibrate instead of ring, and it rang between 2:30 and 5:30, and he didn't hear it. He said, I was exhausted the first 2 months on the job. I was just exhausted. And Susie Wiles called him in and said, that is the last time you will not answer. He was just upfront about it. He's like, so now the sound is, I mean, it's like all fire alarm.
You can hear it across the room.
It startled him. I'm telling you right now, I was sitting right next to him. It startled him because he was known to have a 3-hour period where don't call me unless it really matters. And then he saw it wasn't the president, and it was one of his lower level guys, and he thought, well, that's okay. And afterwards, we all know what happened. So really interesting. There's much more, again, at my podcast today if you want to hear more about what happened on that evening. kkhasissues.com. We will break. We come back. We're going to lighten it. And by the way, thanks to Chris DeGaulle, because he said afterwards, I talked to Chris, he said, I didn't know whether I should come up and let you know or not. I said, oh, my gosh, yes. For Will's sake. Will felt terrible that the program ended early. I'm like, no, Will, it's good. The program ending early is just fine with these folks. We're good. And Chris was like, I didn't know whether I should show this to you or not. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm like, thank you. This was not the kind of crowd that was on its phone. I remember I told the story of being at Iowa Speedway when Trump was shot in Butler, Pennsylvania, and Luke Combs was on stage right in front of us at a before-race event. And everybody was on their phones getting texts from people. The internet wasn't working, so nobody could follow anything, but they were getting texts, and we could all see that. That's not what this crowd was. This room was a room full of people whose phones were down. Nobody was on their phone. They were listening to Will Sharf. And, Chris does because he's in the media. He's like me, whatever. He was in a spot where he could keep it under the table. And then when Chris said it, one or two other people said, yeah, like they knew as well. But literally like only 3 people in the room knew. And Will Scharf didn't know, and he was very thankful that Chris Stegall did that. So tip of the cap to Chris Stegall. We really appreciate him. All right, let's give away some concert tickets right now. Morton Amphitheater. Oh, this is going to be a beautiful venue. Jason Aldean, Luke Bryan, and Hank Williams Jr. are all coming this summer. Separate dates. They each have their own concert. You get to pick. Is it caller number 7?
Yes, caller 7.
Caller 7 right now for Mark. You get to pick which show you want to go to. Jason Aldean, Luke Bryan, or Hank Williams Jr. 913-408-7957. Concert tickets to Morton Amphitheater right now on KCMO.
politician. They get on me, want to know, Hank, why do you drink? Hank, why?
All right, Cody's our winner. He has selected the Hank Williams Jr. concert to go to this summer at Morton Amphitheater. What a great venue, folks. Check out their full schedule online if you want to check it out and go see a show this summer. Pretty cool stuff. Mark Van Parlay joining us now. And Mark, I sent you over the weekend the news that one bettor at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino walked to the window with $30, and he bet on 6 different players to hit a home run in the same day. Riley Green, Bryce Harper, Jazz Chisholm, and 3 others. And it hit. I asked my wife, how much do you think that paid? And she said $50,000. And I said, how about $1.86 million? Are you kidding me? Did you know of such a thing?
I mean, if you can use a boost, usually on FanDuel, they do this Dinger Tuesday. So on Tuesdays, you get a 50% boost on home runs. I usually try to do like 3 guys, and I usually get 1 out of 3 right. If you can get all 6, that is a payout.
That is insane. A $30 bet, 1.86. So if it's a $3 bet, you'd have made $186,000.
That's, oh my gosh. Yeah, I got to try that on tomorrow. I'm coming in tomorrow, and I'm letting you guys know who my picks are.
Well, isn't the Sacramento ballpark where the Royals are playing tomorrow night? Isn't that? It's just home runville, isn't it?
Should be, yeah.
Okay, and Bobby got his first this weekend? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Jack's
so maybe
knocking him out now?
Maybe Bobby?
Yeah.
Maybe Bobby's the way to go. Your thoughts on the Chiefs draft? They're trying to tell us something. They're trying to say we need better players on defense, and they're trying to say that we're going to run the ball on offense. Is that what they're telling us?
I think so, which I like that. I think that they're going to be better on defense. I think that their offense is going to be better without new receivers.
The corner has to be a star. I mean, if you make that move, he has to become one of the top 1 or 2 cornerbacks in the league quickly.
Both cornerbacks they took had the best Pro Football Focus grades of any cornerbacks in the draft. So they went for high productive guys.
And you like the Nebraska running back as a change from Kenneth Walker?
Yeah, I think that he can be a good third down back.
Because Walker catches the ball real well too, right?
He's okay. He's not the best at it.
Okay.
So.
This guy is.
Mm-hmm.
This guy he's a very versatile. He doesn't have the breakaway speed, but he
could be like McKinnon, I think.
Okay.
Remember how McKinnon was a couple years ago? I think he can be like that.
He gets a lot of positive yards very often.
Mm-hmm.
That's his thing, is positive yards. We like that. Also saw this on draft weekend in the NFL. NFL owners' political contributions. Of all the money donated, 87.4% from all owners combined has gone to Republicans.
That makes sense.
12.6% has gone to Democrats. The Broncos owner, the Walmart family, they're the biggest donor to the Republicans there is. So do that with what you want. Vince Show's coming up next. Thank you so much, as always, for listening to Uncanceled on KCMO Talk Radio.